The question is that Darian Fenton's typescript amendment... Oh, sorry. Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr Chairman, I'm sure that the member's motives with this bill are honourable and that his objectives are genuine, which I perceive as to ensure democracy in unions voting for or not to strike. But if so, I am not convinced that the bill will assist that, and indeed the reverse may well be the case. New Zealand First would wish to be even-handed in these matters, not necessarily wishing to promote the interests of either the unions or the employers and their organisations. However, New Zealand First will oppose the bill in its entirety, simply because we're not quite sure, notwithstanding what the member has said and what he's saying now, what the problem is that there is to fix, and indeed how this bill would fix it. Our conclusion is that the bill is deeply flawed in concept and in purpose. When you think about the bill and the way it goes about whatever that objective is, you need to consider what the interests of democracy require. First of all, when voting needs to be in secret, such as parliamentary elections, when voting should not be secret, such as in Parliament itself. In this case, union members are voting as a group on a decision to strike, something which affects them all and which they do as a group in a collegial sort of way. Because it is not a private decision, unlike a vote in a parliamentary election, and because it is a group decision, this requires collegiality. It requires group discussion in which it is proper and constructive for members to know why and whether another member is voting one way or the other. I think that is actually a very constructive thing to happen. There is no need for secrecy in that kind of situation. In fact, the reverse is the case. It is better if it isn't secret. That's better for democracy. That's better for group action. No reason is given by the member or by any member opposite why a secret ballot is necessary for a democratic decision to strike. The committee report simply says it refers to the consistency with the Principal Act. That's hardly a reason, certainly not one which New Zealand First would recognise as such. It's not necessarily always in the interests of democracy for voting to be secret, especially in private and voluntary organisations where secret ballots can lead to vote fixing and auditing is impracticable. Moreover, it is not the business of government to dictate the manner in which private and voluntary organisations should conduct their internal affairs. This is not yet a police state, notwithstanding national steps towards it. Otherwise, would not this government require secret ballots for boards of directors and shareholder meetings in private companies? What another member said is quite correct. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. But here we see not an even-handed approach. Here we see a prejudicial one. A democratic society requires that unions be free, like all other private and voluntary organisations, to run their own affairs, to allow their members to make their own rules of governance, not Big Brother, not some tyrannical government. In summary, there is no need for secret ballots for a democratically run organisation where group or collegial decision-making is needed. Secondly, a decision whether to make ballots secret or not belongs to the members of the organisation and not to those members opposite and not to any government in this country. That is a private matter. It is not a government matter. And if the National Party thinks it should be making decisions on behalf of private organisations in this country, it better look back to its principles, because as far as I can see, it's not following them. And thirdly, the principles which are applicable in the case of union members' voting methods are these. First of all, freedom of members to make their own rules, voluntary membership, which we certainly agree with, and collegiality in decision-making and voting, Mr Chairman, collective responsibility and openness and transparency as between the members voting. None of those principles are reflected in this bill. The bill will achieve next to nothing except another step in excessive government and excessive regulation, something which I thought this government was opposed to, but sadly not. New Zealand First will certainly oppose this bill and every part of it.
The question is that Darian Fenton's typescript amendment to insert new clause A be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no.
No.
The noes have it.
Noes have it.
Party vote. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party.
14 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 opposed.
Māori Party.
2 votes opposed.
Mana.
1 in favour.
Act New Zealand.
1 opposed.
United Future.
1 opposed.
Order. Votes will be taken in silence. Green vote. Excuse me, just a point of clarification, Mr Haig. Your vote was for or against?
In favour in both cases.
Thank you. So the ayes are 49, the noes are 71. The amendment is not agreed to. We move now to new clause 5B in Darian Fenton's name on the typescript amendment. The question is that new clause 5B in Darian Fenton's name be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. Noes have it. Party vote. The clerk will conduct the party vote.
New Zealand National.